Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Crossword Bookstore, I would like to extend a very, very warm welcome to each and every one of you. Thank you so much for taking out your precious time and being present here with us at this one of a kind grand gathering. My name is Dhwani Karia, and it's my utmost pleasure to walk you through this eventful evening. I'm aware that we all have been eagerly waiting for this new book, and many of you have got the copies as well, which is by our favorite author. As you all know, we have gathered here for the book launch of The Touch of Eternity by Durjoy Datta. Today, we're going to celebrate the launch of this book in association with Crossword Bookstores and the publisher Penguin India. Ladies and gentlemen, you know a lot about him, but just to, give a few pointers. Durjoy Datta was born in New Delhi and completed a degree in engineering and business management before embarking on a writing career. His first book, Of Course I Love You, was published when he was 21 years old. Wow. And it was an instant bestseller. His successive novels have also found prominence on various bestseller lists, making him one of the highest selling authors in the country. Durjoy has also, to his credit, 9 television shows and has written over 1,000 episodes for television as well. And without further ado, we have our author with us today. So, very, very warm welcome to you, Durjoy Datta, with us.
Thank you for having me here. I'll not lie, it's a little bit odd doing a book launch. Like, it doesn't. But as I realized that you have to get used to these things, and yeah, I think this is the way forward. It's better than not having a book launch.
Yes.
Yeah, and a huge round of applause for Crossword for actually doing this. And I have always said that, and everyone knows this, that anyone who's in the books business is because they really like the books business, because
So true.
it's less of a business and more of like a slightly expensive passion. So yeah, it's fun to be here, and yeah, thank you Crossword for doing this for me.
Wow, it's such an honor to have you here, Durjoy. I'm going to start with the synopsis of the book because we are definitely going to discuss it in the detail. But just to give the synopsis to the audience, I'll read out. Uh, Born on the same day and at the same time, Dhruvan and Anvesha know they are soulmates in every sense of the word. Their parents, however, refuse to accept their togetherness at first and try to tear them apart. Dhruvan and Anvesha hold on to each other against all odds. In the same timeline, the world is on the brink of a major scientific breakthrough that could make reincarnation possible. This is an opportunity for the two to prove their love and to tell the world that it is love that can make the impossible possible. Dhruvan and Anvesha participate in the experiment as if their life depends on it, because it does. Will the dream of a man to control love and life come true? And when the time comes, can one stay true to their soulmate? Wow, that's really beautiful. That was the synopsis of the book, and now we have the author right here with us. So, Durjoy, I have a few questions to ask you, if allow me.
Yeah, yeah, of course, please. I think this is what I like about Zoom calls, that you could read out the entire synopsis, and it looks like you remember it. I think so.
I'm
Yeah.
sure a lot of your fans have already bought the book, remember it by heart, and that's why we're already receiving a lot of questions. So I would also request the audience that right now my segment is to ask to draw questions, but you can send in your questions, which we will be taking in after this segment. All right. So my first question is, you have written so many books, Durjoy, in a short span of time. So what is the secret behind doing so? I mean, it's a very time consuming work. So how has it been possible for you?
I think it's because it's the only thing that I do. I mean, I just write, and I derive a lot of pleasure out of writing. So even if you ask me to do something else, I will drop that and I will start writing. So writing and reading are two things that I really enjoy, and it's a vicious cycle. The more I read, the more I want to write. the more I write, the more I want to read. So,
Right.
I mean, of course, of late in the last couple of years, there's a lot of time that I spend just scrolling up and down Twitter timelines. But if you ask me to do anything else, if you want ask me to watch Netflix, I will say no. I would rather just read a book. So yeah.
Wow.
So I mean, it's just like, if I watch something and start judging it, that okay, if this were a book, how would it look like? And then I'm like, not that great. So then I just put it and go ahead and
Wow,
pick up a
that's
book. Yeah. So I think just because I do it every day, this was what I was discussing with my wife this morning, because I woke up in the morning and I wrote like 1,000 words in like 3 4 hours, and I was like, if I can write 1,000 words every day, I will end up writing 3,65,000 words a year. That is like five
wow.
books. So I mean, if it's the only thing that you do and you do it well, you can actually finish a lot of books. So yeah, of course, there are people who spend 7 years writing a book, but I can't see myself doing that, because once I like an idea, I have to finish it before another idea sort of starts exciting me a lot, because then I'll never finish a book.
Wow, that's so amazing, and that's a wonderful speed. And I feel every writer and every artist has their own way of working through something. So definitely, for some it may take 7 years, and for people like you, it may just take like 7 days. So that's amazing. The next question, which I'm so sure so many people from the audience also would like to ask you, is like, how do you overcome writer's block?
So, writer's block is nothing but procrastination. Like procrastination, sometimes procrastination on steroids, and because especially writing is something that comes with so much of self-doubt, and there is
Right,
no end to writing. Like you can just keep getting better, or at some point in time you don't even get better. You just think that you can do better, but you're just going around in circles, and
right,
it's mostly self-doubt. So you just keep putting it off, that okay, I can make this better, I will wait for inspiration to strike. And of course, inspiration is I think it's mostly fictional. I think writers have made this up because they're so good at fiction. They have made this up as well, that only when inspiration strikes can you write. But I think
right.
inspiration is quite lazy. It's not going to come knocking at your door. You have to like seek it out, or not even seek it out. I think you just have to sit on a laptop every day. You have to treat it like a job. You just have to
Right.
turn up, complete your word count, and then even if it's bad, you can come back and edit it. Most of all, writing is rewriting anyway. It's not like you will write something today and tomorrow you'll be happy about it. So you just need to keep writing, and that is what I do. I mean, I just sit in front of the laptop, and at certain point in time, I'm like, I'm tired of not writing anything. At least just let me write something. So
Right.
I think that's the best way. I think the biggest writer's block I hit is when I stop writing. When I stop writing, and week goes by, and if I'm traveling or something, I come back and I just feel that okay, now where do I start from? So the
Right.
easiest way to fight out of it is to read the books that I first read when I got the idea of the book that I'm writing, or just read the book again, and then feel excited about the idea again. And the minute you're excited about the idea, you get something to write. So yeah, that's what I
Definitely.
do.
So, all the writers out there, as he said, it's laziness, it's procrastination. So, be aware and just keep writing. All right, the next question I want to ask is about the book. A Touch of Eternity talks about eternal love. What, according to you, is eternal love?
So I don't know. I mean, that's why I've written the book.
Right,
Because I wanted to pose that question, that, because eternal love can mean different things to different people. I think the idea of love lasting an eternity has come from books. And those, I think the first books were probably written, I think, hundreds of years ago, when the average age of anyone was, I think, 20 21. So when
right,
you're falling in love with 15, then eternity means living for 7 years with that person, or 8 years with that person. So forever meant like 10 years, 12 years at maximum. Now,
right.
everyone is living up to 75. Eternity means living like 35 years with that person. So, for example,
Right.
if in the next 10 years, the average age goes up by 20 years, it means living with that person for 55, 60, 70 years. So,
Wow.
I mean, the like how long is eternity is it's stretching. So with this
Right.
book, I want to explore that what if, okay, you have a great love story this in this birth, would you want to be with the same person in another birth as well? Like if I give you a chance of reincarnation with that person, will you take it? I mean that
Right.
can be a bit much. So so that is what I wanted to explore. So I think when you are just falling in love, I think everyone will say, "Ha, this is a love story of a lifetime, not even a lifetime, multiple lifetimes." But as you go
Wow.
on, by the time you are, I think midway, you will think that okay, maybe a change is nice. I'm thinking. I mean, I don't know, but yeah, I just want to explore it. That will most couples decide to get born together again? Or would a new lifetime mean a new human experience? So, yeah.
Wow. That's really beautifully said. Wow. All right. So the next question I want to ask is, which is it's very surprising. What was your inspiration behind including sci-fi angle in a romance novel?
So, I think I stopped writing conventional romance like a few years ago, and now I just fake that I'm a romance writer because romance romance is no longer the mainstay of my books. So I get excited about an idea which has nothing to do with romance, and then I add two characters who eventually fall in love. Because
Right.
in the years I've realized that I don't find the romance written by me very interesting or very new because I've written so many books. I think that I repeat myself a lot. So I try to stay away from writing a lot of romance. Of course, there is a spine that says romance, but apart from that, everything else is like different things. So I got excited by this idea of what if you could get reincarnated and what if I could transfer your soul to someone else's body, etc. And then of course,
Wow.
the minute you say soul, you say soulmates. And so I thought, okay, let me just bring in that love story right now. And
Right.
yeah, that's how. So most of my stories, they start with something else, and the characters just end up falling in love because what else will they do? So,
Wow.
so that's
Thank you
that's
for being so candid.
so that is what usually happens in my books.
That's really sweet of you. Okay, so the next question is because we're talking about romance here. Why do you prefer romance over any other genre? What is this
I,
soft
it's
corner for?
I think it's more than a preference. I think it started off. I was labeled as a romance writer when I came in, whereas I was just
Mhm.
writing about stuff that was happening to people in college. And in college, there are only two things that's happening to you: either you are worried about your job or you are worried about getting into relationships. So worried about
Right.
getting a job is not really a literary genre. So romance is a genre. So they said, okay, you are a romance writer. And I was like,
Wow.
okay, fine. Like I was a young writer, so I was like, okay, fine. I'm a romance writer if you say so. After
Mhm.
that, I think it was more of a limitation because I did not know what else to write. I mean, I've
Right.
grown up reading fantasy. I've grown up reading thrillers, but I just did not think of myself as capable enough to try my hand at those genres because there was no precedence also. Like, of course, there are people who keep writing in these genres, and those are mostly regional books.
Mhm.
But I did not see someone very successful that I could sort of emulate that, okay, I have to write like this person, and this person has captured this market, and this exists, and these are the characters I mean, I had no one to learn from. So,
Right.
like Western authors had written a lot, but to translate that into the Indian sort of milieu
Yes.
is a little I found it a little difficult. Of course, there are other people who do it. So, like if you say fantasy, you can't write fantasy in India without it having a strong dose of mythology. So I did not want to do
Right.
that because I have not grown up reading fantasy that is heavily inspired by myth. Of course, there is a lot of fantasy that is inspired by the Norse gods and everything, but they have a lot of fantasy that just exists out of nowhere. So I
Right.
did not have that. So yeah, I found it very hard to think of myself as anything more than a romance writer.
Wow. That's really interesting. All right. So the next question I have is, what is the message that you want to convey through the book, A Touch of Eternity?
Entertainment. I mean, it's. I mean, so this is what I think my problem is that I do feel very strongly about a few things. So like
Mhm.
whatever is happening in the country, everyone is political. Like I don't think anyone, if you have an opinion on what's happening in your country, you are political, and everything that you
Right.
do is political. Like whatever happens during the day is some politics or other. So I do feel very strongly about all
Right.
these, like every issue that there's there, every issue that you read in the newspaper. But I think I don't know enough to
Mhm.
write a book that preaches or gives a very strong opinion about it. So what I do
Right.
instead is that I write a book where there are a bunch of characters who discuss it and reach no conclusion, and then you move on. So
Right.
I write like that, and some people take the side of one character, some people take the side of the other character. So I don't really aim to give out any message. Like my books are not
Right.
Panchatantra story that at the end of the day you'll have a moral of the story
There's
that at the end of
right.
eternity now we are going to live our life like this. It doesn't have, like, my books are not structured like that. But of
Right.
course, I mean, when I'm writing a book, I just want to write a book that I would want to read, and I don't read books because I want to learn something. If I had to learn something, I would pick up a non-fiction book, right?
Oh,
I
nice.
Yeah. So, or I if I want to learn some philosophy, I'll read a philosophy book, right? I don't need to read a fiction book, which is not to say that
Right.
everyone should do it, but that's just how I see books as. So for me, a book should not be boring. That's the essential bit of it, that it should not be boring. Yeah.
True. That's very nicely put because I also feel, and many people will be agreeing, that art is a very subjective matter. At the same time, reality is what we perceive. So everybody takes in their own experiences from any work of art they witness. So I completely agree with you when you say that. So also one thing when it comes to now that you're one of the best-selling authors. So is there any pressure on you? Like, do you write for readers or do you write for yourself, or is it like somewhere in between?
It's somewhere in between. I think firstly you can't just write for yourself. I mean, if you were
Right.
writing for yourself, it would be a diary, right? You would
Mhm.
not you would not go out and publish it. So
Right.
I have thought about this, and I realized that when I'm writing my first two drafts, it is
Mhm.
just for myself. I'm thinking that, okay,
Right.
this is the book that I would want to read. This is my story. I'm going to write it for myself, and I overindulge, and I just vomit whatever comes in my mind. I just write it all. And so for the first two drafts, I'm like that. I'm just trying to figure out what my story is. I think it's the
Right.
third or fourth draft that once I have my story, once I've actually indulged myself, really gone deep into subjects that I wanted to go in,
Mhm.
I go into the reader mode and I read everything from a reader's point of view and try to figure out that, does this only make sense to me, or would it make sense to someone who's reading it? So
Right.
that's when I take out my bias from the story and read it from a reader's point of view. Then I might take out huge chunks of my story that were important to me, but I think that would not matter to the reader, because a lot of time, it happens that you feel very strongly about it, but I mean, I remember in my very first book, I wrote this entire page about, um, which DU college, Delhi University College, is good according to me. And then I was like, why is this
Wow.
subject getting read in Delhi? So this is very irrelevant to people who are not in Delhi.
Right.
So stuff like that keeps on happening. But I just wanted to say that I did it in my first book because I realized in my very first book that I'm not writing for myself. Even
Right.
even though I had like no expectations of getting published, I knew that if someone has to read it, they are not going to be interested by necessarily be interested in what I am very specifically interested in. So
Right.
yeah, I think the first two drafts are 100% for myself, and then every line is for the reader.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's amazing. So how many drafts do you usually write? Like four?
4, 5 usually. I mean, then actually 4 is my number. But if my editor sort of says that you have written too much or you have written too little or the end comes too fast, then I have to do another one. But I think the first two drafts take the most time. The first draft takes. I think the second first draft is okay. The second draft is the one that takes the most amount of time, because the first draft I'm just writing, 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 writing. It makes no sense at all. By the time I finish the book, I sort of have an idea. Okay, this is the story, right? For A Touch of Eternity, I was writing the book, so I was writing purely the sci-fi thing with smatterings of Dhruvan and Anvesha were the main characters. By the time I ended it, I was like, okay, for this sci-fi thing to matter, I have to bring up the two characters, and these two characters have to matter to the readers for the sci-fi thing to matter. So I knew, okay, so
Right.
this is now what I need to write the story like. So the second draft is usually where I know where I'm going. So Neil Gaiman said in an interview that, the first draft is you writing like you know what you're writing. The second draft is, I mean, the first draft is like driving through a fog with your headlights off. The second draft is clearing. There is
Right.
traffic, but you know where you have to go.
Yes. That's very nicely put. True. Wow. Actually, that's a lot of work writing so many drafts. Really. Uh, Now we come to the characters of the book. Uh, Tell us a little bit about Dhruvan and Anvesha's journey, and what do you feel about these characters?
Okay. So I find it very hard to talk specifically about the books, because by the time I finish writing with the books, it's been so many months of spent with those characters that, like, when you say Dhruvan and Anvesha, I'm like, yes, they bore me. They bore me quite a bit now. So so but Dhruvan and Anvesha came out of the fact that, what if, so the book had multiple drafts, so I was like, what if, so this is where it started from, that what if there are two characters who have been together for centuries at an end, and they have
Wow.
like slight memories of past lives. But then I was like, this is too filmy. So I think, because then I realized that a lot of people fall in love and they really believe that they are soulmates. So,
Yeah.
but to drive home that point, I made that, okay, what if these two people were born to best friends, they were neighbors, they were born in the same hospital on the same date, on the same time, and
Yeah.
they have skipped the entire cycle of meeting someone for the first time and then being friends and then being a relationship and then deciding that they're soulmates. What if they just skip to being soulmates? That for them no other possibility sort of existed. So their entire relationship is summed up by the fact when they first kiss and they decide that, okay, what are we now? And they
Right.
decide, okay, we are lovers or we are girlfriend or boyfriend, and they're like, we are actually going a step down. We always said that we are soulmates, and now we are saying we are girlfriend boyfriend. That's like an insult to our relationship. So that is
Wow.
because, so they believe that their love story is eternal. Like, there is, I mean, if you would ask those characters, of course there's no question like that in the book, but if you ask those characters when you do that, they would say that on the same day, on the same time. So yeah.
Wow.
So their love sort of defines these two characters. Of course, they are other things as well. Like Dhruvan is a brilliant guy, and Anvesha is like the maverick, creative person. But
Mhm.
that is secondary to them. The primary characteristics is that they are in love with each other.
Wow. That's such a nice way of looking at your characters, and you're right. You must feel like going through that. You've spent so much of time with them, like the characters, and now it becomes very difficult, or maybe a little bit. You will be out of words to describe that journey. All right. So the next question is, what was the trigger point which led you become a writer? Because you started writing at such a young age. So what was the trigger point for you?
The trigger point was, I think, every reader, when they sort of read a lot of books, at some point in time they read a book that's so badly written that they're like, okay, if this book can get published, I can get published. So a lot of readers, come up to me and they say that we read your book and we are inspired, we want to write. So I'm thinking
Wow.
that this is a double-edged sword. Like, they are
Yeah.
inspired to do the thing that they can write like me. So I think I must have read like a okayishly written book, and I would have thought that, yeah, I could. like I can give it a shot. I mean, I can also
Right.
finish writing a book. And of course, then when I was young, I used to run a blog, and like a bunch of us used to run different blogs, and we used to read each other, and we used to give each other encouragement. Oh, you should write a book. You should write a book. But no one took it seriously. I think I was the youngest in the group, so I was like, what everyone is saying is probably the truth, and I'm a great writer. I should write a book. So I took
Wow.
their encouragement very seriously, and I wrote a book. But of course, I did not expect to be published because there was no precedence of a lot of people getting published. But I wrote a book, and I was very happy about the book. I was just happy that I tried to do something and I could write. Like a lot of people say that I want to write a book, but no one really writes a book. So I wrote a book and I submitted it, and that was my goalpost. Like that was my victory that
Yeah.
I've submitted a book. If it gets rejected, it's fine. Just getting there is enough. So I think I just wanted to write something and finish it, and I finished it, and everything that has come after it is a bonus.
Wow, that's so beautiful. So, all the aspiring writers out there, please don't wait a lot to write something like Durjoy. You can also like immediately start and try and finish it, and you'll be hopefully such a be able to publish your book and get every bonus like he's getting it. So, you have any tips for budding writers out there, because we have a lot of questions about that as well. So, any tips that
Um,
you can?
I think the most I know a lot of writers are successful having not read a lot of books, but I would say that if you want to be a writer, you have to read a lot of books, just for the fact that it's the only way that you would know how to write. I mean,
Right.
you have to see how other people have told their stories to know how to write yourself. And no matter how great your idea is, you can come up with the most intense idea, but I am sure that there are 10 writers who have written the same book before you. I mean, has no
Right.
one written about reincarnation? Of course, people have written about reincarnation. Have people not written about soul? Of course, they have. And I have read those
Yes.
books. But I've read those books. I read those books, and those books were brilliant. But I thought that okay, I have a different take on it. So I have learned
Right.
from what all of these guys have written, and
Mhm.
I will sort of be inspired by it and see what works for me and take those elements and see if they fit in my story. But rest of it is mine. So I
Right.
mean, if you're just going to write without having learned anything from
Mhm.
anyone, I think it's a tall ask. I mean, it's like climbing a mountain without having gone through a mountaineering course. I mean, you can do it. It's not like you can't do it. If you're a fit person, you think you can do it. Of course, you can do it. But
Right.
is it recommended? Of course not.
Definitely. Now that we're talking about reading, can you tell us what you're currently reading and maybe your top three books or maybe your
No,
top three authors?
where? Oh, my book's not here. Okay. So I'm
No
reading
problem.
the Thursday Murder Club,
Mhm.
and it's a murder mystery set in an old age home. It's very interesting. It's a
Wow.
huge bestseller. So I got it. My publisher sent it to me and said read
Mhm.
it, and
Wow.
any book that I see that's a huge best-selling book, I read it with a little bit of envy at first. That oh wow, what is it? इतना क्या है इतनी क्यों बिकनी है it's like, but the usual thing that what happens is that when I'm into it for like 20 pages, not only do I forget that envy, I sort of understand that okay, this is why this is a bestseller. It's not like most bestsellers that I
Wow.
read, although like a lot of these books get panned by critics, but I know, yeah, this is a bestseller. This is interesting. This is so yeah. I'm reading that book along with, so I keep reading nonfiction as well. So
Mhm.
I'm reading nonfiction books as well. So I just finished a bunch of nonfiction books about productivity because that's very important in in this pandemic. You're working from home and your door is constantly getting knocked by your kids. So yeah, I'm reading that.
Wow.
Reading a bunch of those.
Wow. I guess from my side, the last question I want to ask is, when you write, it's a very time-consuming job, and as you said, you have children and everyone at home, and during the pandemic as well. What is your schedule like when it comes to writing? How many hours a day you write, and any different setup time for inspiring, for going through some inspiring work and motivation?
Okay, so I tell you, before the pandemic hit,
Hmm.
um, everyone used to be out of the house, and I could just sit in
Hmm.
my bedroom and write. Right?
Wow.
I had a table. I could just sit, and whenever my kid used to go down, I can like and I can write. But now, I think from March it started to now December, January, I was trying to write and trying to find out, but it was so difficult that finally this time I was like, no, I need my own space. So finally we have this space which is absolutely empty. This room has nothing but my table, so that I could
Wow.
finally get so. So for anyone who's thinking of taking up writing as a career, just know that it took me 13 years and 18 best-selling books to have a place to write. Before that, I've
Wow.
written my first
Wow.
I think I've written my first 15 books on my bed, just keeping my laptop over my face and then typing. It's a very late
Wow.
development in fact, I think it was in 2016 or 17 that my wife was like, when we got married, my wife was like, you have written so many books. You sit on your bed and write. At least get a table. And then she said that, okay,
Wow.
we buy this table. And I was like, no, this is very expensive. And she was like, you are going to spend 6, 7 hours every day on this table. We can spend this much. And it's just a table. Please go ahead and get it.
What
It
are you saying?
because
Wow.
she was my reader, and she was like, it feels very insulting to me that I am your fan. And I see my best-selling writer just sitting on the sofa sometimes, sitting on the floor and writing. Please get some structure. I'm like, okay, fine, I'm going to do it.
Wow, that's one of the very rare stories we'll come across of a writer. That's really funny. But actually, yeah, it's yeah. So it just shows that when you write, you just write. You don't need anything. I feel you
Yeah,
just need that kind of dedication.
exactly. I think as I've grown older, I've grown more finicky because I'm
Yeah.
constructing reasons to not write. Oh, I need my own space. Do I need my own space? No, of course. Without having my own
Wow.
space, I was writing at a much higher speed. Now I'm much slower. So I'm just making up pretext. Oh, I have a kid and too much noise. These are not pretexts to not
Right.
write, to delay writing.
Right. Wow. Guess we all are going to get very responsible after hearing this talk, definitely. So, Durjoy, we have a lot of questions coming in from the audience. If you allow me, I'll take a few with you.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. So we have Harshal Shah who's asking. So this book, he's asking, was it completely written during the lockdown? And have you written off lately anything for OTT or telesoaps? Because you've written a lot of things in the past. So
Yeah.
these two
So
questions.
I think I started before the lockdown because my last book came out in 2019 July. So I would have started just after that, maybe September or something. So half the book was written in the lockdown and half the book before the lockdown. And as for OTT platforms, the last show that I wrote was Never Kiss Your Best Friend on Z5, and
Mhm.
it was like a fairly light show, and we were trying to get the second season to roll out, but the thing is that the first season was shot in London, and you
Wow.
know how London is. Yeah, there are lockdowns
Yeah,
every
yeah.
2 months, so every time something gets planned, it gets pushed because a new lockdown is enforced. And we have
Right.
changed the story a bunch of times, but I think the second season will have to wait for a little bit because London doesn't seem to get any better. So
Right.
yeah, that's the last show that I wrote. I also wrote a couple of more shows, but they were like they're okay. They're not that great. Not worth talking about.
So sweet. Then the next question is from Drushi Gandhi. She's asking, who has been your inspiration when you started writing romance as a genre?
Firstly, as I said that I did not start writing romance as a genre. I was told that what you're writing is romance, and romance
Mhm.
as a genre is defined very differently in the Indian context than in the Western context. Where Western context, people are very sure, okay, what John Green, David Leviathan, and these all these young adult writers write is young adult because their characters are like less than 18 years of age, but the things that they are doing are, I mean, they are mature, intelligent characters. Not saying that 17-year-olds are not intelligent, but you know,
Right.
the issues that they deal with are issues that you would think that older people deal with. and that's why they called it young adult. Although there is a lot of romance in that book, in those books.
Right.
So that is young adult, and romance is where Mills and Boons, but more contemporary Mills and Boons, longer books, deeper characters, greater conflicts. That is romance. In India, both of those is the same thing. So it's a
Mhm.
mix. So uh, I have not grown up reading romance because my parents were deciding the kind of books that I was reading, and they were, of course, not plying me with romance books. They were they were giving me thrillers and sort of some literary books, etc. Although a lot of thrillers are not suitable for young people, but that's what they were giving me. They were like, still better than him reading romance, and especially Western romance. So yeah, I mean, if you ask me, I have been more inspired by young adult writers than as romance
Mhm.
writers. There was a time that I was absolutely obsessed with John Green, and way before John Green became John Green, I've followed him from his first book, and I was like, if you have to be a writer, you have to be like him. And I started mimicking him for a few books, and then everyone told me that you're not getting anywhere. Please retain your own style. So I was like,
Wow.
okay.
Wow. Well, that's amazing. The final question I want to ask is, what according to you think makes a good story? A story likable by everybody, a story where people can relate very easily. Is it a complete honesty, that you have a kind of intention you want to set, or would it be the
I
hard
was,
work?
I was anxious a good part of my morning because I tell you what, there were, so this is what I keep. I'm pretty sure my phone will hang now, but yeah. So this is a message that I got this morning. I should not, like, you can't see it probably, but I'll just read it. Please focus more on your stories. Just don't write for earning money. A Touch of Eternity is a complete disappointment for me. Not able to read after a few chapters. Please don't make me lose hope on you. And this message is from a person who has been following me and reading my books for a really long time, and he has really liked all these books. So when you say that what's a story which is liked by everyone, I just realize every day that I've written 18 books. There can be someone who has liked 17, but the 18th book that you write can make a reader lose all hope in you.
Right.
So, so
Wow.
you can't really decide that okay, this book is great and will be liked by everyone. You have to understand that, say, Penguin India comes out with, I'm guessing, 20 books in a month, and
Right.
none of those 20 writers or none of the editors of those 20 books think that okay, this book is going to bomb. Everyone is
Mhm.
thinking that okay, we have picked up this book is going to work, and out of those
Right.
books, maybe one book works. So I mean, 1 out of 20 is 5%. And 1 out of 20 is very hopeful. I'm saying it would be 1%. I'm still saying 5%. So out of 100 writers, 99 writers and 99 editors absolutely have no idea what people would like. So that's why any writer who, I mean, of course, when you read a best-selling book, and especially not like mine, but if you read an international best-selling book and you read it, most of the times you will feel that okay, this book is definitely better than the others. But when you're reading a lot of books, your judgment is impaired. So most writers read a lot of books and they genuinely do not have any idea what works. So
Right.
when I'm judging my own books according to my own standards, I just think that a book should not be very slow, um, and a book should have some level of, entertainment value. By entertainment, I'm not saying like drama, but something
Yeah.
has to happen in the book. Like you
Yeah.
can't, the book should not happen in the reader's mind, in
Right.
the writer's mind. The book should happen in the reader's mind. When a reader is reading it, what is the reader feeling? That you can't lose the pulse of that, because I am not inviting the reader into my mind. Oh, see how great I think. I am giving
Right.
an opportunity for the reader to imagine something and feel something. We are in the game of emotionally manipulating the reader, not
Right.
waiting for the reader to peer into your head and see what great thoughts you have. So that is what I
Right.
think. Like that is what I do. I mean, it might not be
Right.
applicable to people, but that's how I look at books.
That's a very nice way of putting it, because yes, I feel we are as a writer, we would like to create a beautiful world for the reader, and that's such a nice thing to do. I feel, and I feel on that note, we will end this question answer segment, and it has been so wonderful, chatting with you. It's just wonderful, really. You're honest, you're really candid side you're presenting to us, and everyone out here is loving it. So thank you so much, Durjoy. Thank you,
Thank you.
for
Thank you.
joining us
Thank
and
you so
making
much
this
for
special.
having me. And it's very important for everyone who's watching right now and everyone who's going to watch it on a later date. Please go ahead and buy my book. That's why we are doing this. We are, leaders are scantier than tigers and they're an endangered species. So please go ahead and buy books, buy multiple copies of my books. I've written 18, but the most important one is A Touch of Eternity. Go and buy this book. I have given it a lot of time and I think it's like one of my half decent books. Please go and buy it and I really hope you like it.
Thank you, Durjoy. And once again, congratulations on The Touch of Eternity. And I'm so sure we all have been waiting for this book. And so, guys, let me tell you that, you know, Valentine's Day is coming in, and this is a perfect book to be gifted to your loved ones. So don't miss it out. It's available on all Crossword bookstores across the country. So grab your copies now. And once again, thank you so much, Durjoy, for making this such
Thank
a
you.
special day for us.
Thank
Thank
you. Thank you
you.
so much. Thank you. Thank you for doing this. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone, the audience, for joining us and making this such a wonderful day. Thank you. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.